Hello, English 2 students, and welcome to day 2 of reading Act 3 of The Crucible. So just as a friendly reminder before we start diving into today's reading, the main thing we're focusing on for this particular act is the plot, specifically identifying the climax. So you will be able to demonstrate an understanding of plot through identifying a climax. If we go back to yesterday, we talked about Gustav Freytag and the German dude who came up with the idea of the plot pyramid. He read a bunch of different stories and figured out that all stories have the same 5 elements to them. Most of the time, they follow the same 5 elements. Even the stories you tell your friends follow these elements, where you have exposition, where you provide background information, you have an inciting incident that leads up to the conflict keeps building and building and building until we get to the climax. This is what we're looking for. The climax is the point of most intense action. It is the turning point of the story. It's the biggest change occurs during the climax. You cannot go back to the original status quo. It's kind of like a roller coaster. You've reached the apex, and now you just have to kind of ride it. You can't go back to the way things were. So keep your eye on the lookout for the climax of this particular play, which happens in Act 3, like most plays. So we start off on page 1299. That's what we're starting off on today. So 1299 is where we're starting off. It is on page 8 of actually it's 1298, so it's actually page 9 of the PDF is where we're starting. So where we left off, they're bringing in Thomas Putman, who Giles is accusing, and he pretty much jumps out and starts to point to the proof, because he says that basically he's saying that let's just start. Here we go. Mr. Putman, I have an accusation by Mr. Corey against you, states that you coldly prompted your daughter to cry witchery upon Gregory Jacobs, that is now in jail. So you have, so basically he's saying that his daughter is faking the cry of witchcraft. He told his daughter to commit that cry, which Putman says is a lie. Giles goes on to say this, and this kind of gives you an insight into what's really going on. My proof is there, pointing to the paper. If Jacob hangs for a witch, he forfeit his property. That is law. And there's none but Putman with the coin to buy it at such a great price. The man is killing his neighbors for land. That is his evidence that he is using. Then they begin to ask who told Giles Corey this, and Giles resistant to tell anybody this. He doesn't really want to tell anybody because of this. Why, I cannot give you the name. You know well, why not? He'll lay in jail if I give you his name. So Giles Corey is no snitch, and so he is not going to tell, and as a result, he's going to be arrested for contempt of court. I do like a couple of lines here. We have Paris saying, the devil lives on such confidences that only the devil will keeps him quiet. So we move into the next page, and the thing I want us to focus on is kind of what Reverend Hale says at some point. All right, so Reverend Hale is trying to get something across. He's trying to make a point right here. The point he's trying to make. We cannot blanket more. There's a prodigious fear of this court in the country. So prodigious, of great size, power, extent. So there's a great fear of this court in this country. I wonder why they're fearing the court. In fact, Danforth questions that too. Then there is a prodigious guilt in the country. Are you afraid to be questioned here? So basically, we begin to see more seeds of people not being in favor of the court. They're not in line with the court. But if you go against the court, kind of like what we saw yesterday, you get thrown to jail. We keep moving forward. We begin to see Mary start to freak out a little bit. And before we proceed, we have Hale that tells us 2 things. Here's the first thing he says, and this is on page 1301. I cannot say he's an honest man. I know him little, but all justice, sir, a claim so weighty cannot be argued by a farmer. In God's name, sir, stop here. Send him home and let him come again with a lawyer. So right there, it's the first thing that Hale does. He's trying to give Reverend Hale some advice. He's not trying to give Reverend Hale. Is Reverend Hale. Sorry, it's been a long day. He's trying to give John Proctor some advice. That advice, he needs to get a lawyer. He's trying to help John Proctor out. And here's the second thing that Reverend Hale has to say. Excellency, I have signed 72 death warrants. I am a minister of the Lord. I dare not to take a life without there be a proof so immaculate, no slightest qualm of conscience may doubt it. Danforth doesn't really want to hear this. Reverend Hale is stressing for them to possibly hear it, just because it's like, hey, just hear him out. That's all you got to do. Just hear him out. Like I'm just as guilty as everybody else. I have blood on my hands, but I'm willing to hear them out. So just hear them out. And then Danforth says this. Whoa, this is an interesting conundrum. This is basically the problem we have here, and Danforth kind of paints it out. Mr. Hale, believe me, for a man such terrible learning, you are most bewildered. I hope you will forgive me. I have been 32 years at the bar, sir, and I would be confounded where I called upon to defend these people. Let you consider now, to Mr. Proctor and the others, and bid all you do likewise. In an ordinary crime, how does one defend the accused? One calls up witnesses to prove his innocence. But witchcraft is ipso facto. It on its face and by its nature an invisible crime, is it not? Therefore, who may possibly be witness to it? The witch and the victim, none other. We cannot hope that the witch will accuse herself, granted. Therefore, we must rely upon her victims, and they do testify. The children certainly do testify. As for the witches, none will deny that we most eager for all their confessions. Therefore, what is left for the lawyer to bring out? I think I have made my point, have I not? Basically kind of saying the issue at hand is that the witches aren't going to confess it, so the power lies in the hands of the victim. The victim is the one that has to come forward in these situations. And keep in mind, we are believing that these girls are telling the truth of God. We begin to see them question Mary Warren here, and kind of are very intense to it. And poor Mary Warren, like, talk about like the situation Mary Warren finds herself in. Her best friend threatens to bash her skull in. Her employer threatens to beat her, and now she's trying to tell the truth. And this judge is like browbeating her and yelling at her because she's trying to overturn something that the judge desperately wants. And even right here, we have like the final straw when Danforth says, I will tell you this, you are either lying now or you're lying in the court. And in either case, you have committed perjury and you will go to jail for it. You cannot lightly say that you lied, Mary. Do you know that? Basically, Mary Warren's between a rock and a hard place. And he brings in the girls. So let's look at this. Think of this as a real world example. Let's say that you were getting picked on by your friends. Like your friends were bullying you. You're at lunch, everybody at the lunch table were making fun of you for some reason, or they were doing something mean to you. You go to the principal and say, hey, so-and-so was being mean to me. And so the principal's like, we're going to get to the bottom of this, and invites in all of your friends and basically says, either now so-and-so said that all of y'all were picking on them. Either they are lying and they're going to get in trouble, or you are lying or you're going to get in trouble. What do you think your friends are going to do? Do you think your friends are going to fess up? Probably not. And also, what are your friends going to do to you afterwards? It's not going to be good. And to add more insult to injury, we went from throwing her to jail, and Judge Danforth says this. It may be that Mary Warren has been conquered by Satan, who sends her here to distract our sacred purpose. If so, her neck will break for it. That poor girl just can't catch a win. They then begin looking into Abigail and start questioning her. There is a funny line that Proctor delivers, which is right here. There also might be a dragon with 5 legs in my house, but no one has seen it. It's just funny. Then Proctor has another line that is that I highlighted that is very interesting, considering like everybody's acting like Abigail's so sweet and innocent, and we all know that Abigail is far from it and quite guilty of certain things, and probably not a child. In fact, Proctor even says this, is not a child. Now hear me, sir. In the sight of the congregations, you were twice this year put out of this meeting house for laughing during prayer. Forsooth! Dare you laugh during prayer? Getting kicked out of church for laughing during prayer. And then on top of that, they admit the dancing, and we catch Paris in a lie right here. And things continue to boil up, and we continue to see an issue come to head where they're like, fine, if you were pretending all that, why don't you pretend now? You kept on, uh, uh, why not? He is up here, a gleam of victory. And yet, when people were accused of witchery, confronting you in court, you would faint, saying their spirits came out upon their bodies and choke you. It's basically saying you would do this. You'd faint. You'd pretend you were ice cold. And they're saying, if it was all fake, do it now. And she can't. What's the matter? Why can't she do it now? She could do it earlier. And she kind of says, and Mary Warren says, I cannot tell you how, but I did. I heard the other girls screaming, you, Your Honor, you believed them. And we're only sporting in the beginning, sir, but then the whole world cried, spirits, spirits. And I promise you, Mr. Danforth, I only thought saw them, but I did not. Why is she able to do it then, but not now? Right there, what I just read is the answer to that question. We continue to build on. We have Danforth begin to question Abigail, and we see Abigail turn on it. We see Abigail kind of go on a guilt trip and then a power trip. And that's where we stopped. We actually stopped right here after, let you beware, Mr. Danforth. Think you be so mighty that the power of hell might not turn your wits. Beware of it. There is. And suddenly, that's where we kind of stopped. And before that, she delivers another good line. I am hurt, Mr. Danforth. I've seen my blood running out. I've seen near murder every day because I've done my duty pointing out the devil's people. And this is my reward, to be mistrusted, denied, questioned like a... So that's where we end. I had an interesting thought at the end of Seventh Hour today that I shared with them, and I'm going to share with y'all now, those of you who are watching. Witchcraft is not real, true, but Abigail did drink blood during Act 1. She did participate in a satanic and a witchcraft type ritual. And now she's become the most powerful person in the town, to the point where the technical leader, the governor, is weakening in her presence. Just saying. All right, that's what we talked about today in day 2 of reading Act 3 of The Crucible. I'll be back tomorrow for day 3. Until next time, my name's been Paul Davidson. If you have any questions, email me at pdavidson@portugal.k12.mo.us, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.